The cold air of the alien chamber smelled of metal and strange herbs. Captain Auric Dane's footsteps echoed as two tall Velaran guards pushed him forward. The chains around his wrists felt heavy, not only because of their weight, but because of what they meant. He was a prisoner in the heart of the most feared empire in this part of the galaxy. He had been exploring a newly discovered star system when his ship's scanners detected energy readings from an uncharted planet. Out of curiosity, he landed to investigate. But before he could collect samples, a fleet of sleek, silver ships appeared in the sky. He was surrounded before he even understood what was happening. The Valerons accused him of trespassing in their sacred territory, an act punishable by death. The Grand Court Hall of Valara was like nothing Auric had ever seen. The walls were tall and curved, covered in silver carvings that shimmered under the light of floating crystal orbs. Hundreds of alien nobles stood on either side, their long, scaled robes sweeping the floor. Some had thin, feathery crests on. Their heads, others had smooth, pale skin with faint patterns like ripples of water. All their eyes were fixed on him, the outsider. At the far end of the hall sat Queen Sarathis. She was taller than any human, her posture perfect, her crown made of black and gold metal that curled upward like wings. Her eyes were bright silver, and her gaze could make even the bravest soldier freeze. She wore armor that seemed to flow, like liquid, yet every movement suggested hidden strength. The guards shoved Auric to his knees before her throne. The hall went silent. "This human," the queen's voice rang out deep and steady, "has broken the ancient law of the Veil. He dared to enter the sacred star without leave. For this crime, the sentence is death." The crowd murmured in approval. Auric could see the satisfaction in many of their faces. The Valarans had fought humans in small border conflicts before, and there was no love between the species. Auric's mind raced. He had been in danger before, ship malfunctions, asteroid storms, alien predators, but this was different. Here, he stood alone against an entire civilization. No rescue ship was coming. No allies waited outside. This was the end, unless he could change it. He took a slow breath. Fear was the natural reaction here. Fear would make sense, but fear would give them exactly what they expected. He thought about his father's words when he had first joined the Galactic Exploration Corps. When they expect you to break, stand taller. When they expect you to beg, smile. So, he smiled. It wasn't a wide grin or a mocking smirk. It was calm, steady, almost warm, a human smile that said, "I am not afraid of you." The reaction was instant. The queen's eyes widened slightly. Her voice stopped mid-sentence. The air in the hall seemed to grow heavier, as if every noble felt the same strange shift. The guards glanced at each other, unsure what to do. Queen Sarathis leaned forward in her throne, her silver eyes fixed on him. She studied every detail of his face, her expression unreadable. The silence stretched for long seconds until she spoke. Again, her tone softer. "Where did you learn to do that, human?" she asked. Auric tilted his head. "Do what?" "That expression," she said almost to herself. "That smile." "It's just something humans do," he replied simply. Her gaze sharpened, but it was no longer filled with the cold certainty of a ruler about to order an execution. It was something else, something like recognition. The nobles began whispering among themselves. Auric caught fragments of words in their language: foretold, sign, impossible. The queen slowly stood. Her armor shifted with the motion, the black gold surface catching the light. "Guards," she said at last, "release him." The order was met with a shocked gasp from the crowd. One of the older nobles stepped forward, his crest bristling in protest. "My queen! The law is clear! He must—" "The law," she interrupted, "is mine to command. I will speak with him alone." The guards obeyed, unlocking the chains from Oric's wrists. His arms felt strangely light without them, but his mind was heavy with questions. Why would a simple smile stop an execution? As the nobles were dismissed, Oric was led to a side chamber. The room was smaller, lit by soft golden lamps. Strange, swirling patterns covered the walls, and a low table in the center held crystal vessels filled with glowing blue liquid. The queen stood near the table, her gaze never leaving him. "You do not understand what you have done, human," she said finally. "Your smile is not a small thing to my people. It is an omen, one that appears in our oldest stories. We call it the Mark of the Unconquered." Oric frowned. "A prophecy?" "More than a prophecy," she said, her voice quiet but intense. "Long ago, when our people faced the great darkness, a being came from the stars. He could not be broken, could not be ruled. His smile in the face of death gave us hope when all was lost. It is said that one day, the unconquered will return when the Velaran people stand at the edge of ruin." "And you think that's me?" Oric asked. The queen studied him for a long moment. "I do not know, but I know that in my lifetime, I have never seen that smile. Until today." He didn't know what to say. He was no chosen hero. He was just an explorer who had wandered into the wrong system. And yet, her eyes told him she believed every word. "Your life is spared," she continued, "but you will not leave Velara. From this moment, you are my guest, and my responsibility." Oric knew the word guest here meant something closer to valuable prisoner. Still, it was better than an execution. He gave a small nod. "Then I suppose I should say thank you." The queen tilted her head as if still trying to understand him. "We shall see if you still thank me in the days to come." Outside the chamber, the alien city stretched under a sky of shifting violet clouds. Oric realized he had just stepped into a game far larger than himself, one where his only weapon was something as simple as a human smile, and somehow that might be enough. The sun of Velara rose slowly over the capital city, its pale golden light reflecting off towers shaped like spirals. From the balcony of the guest chamber, Captain Oric Dane could see floating ships gliding between the high structures, their silver hulls catching the light like streams of water in the air. It would have been beautiful if not for the truth. He was still a prisoner. The queen had spared him, but she had also made it clear that leaving was not an option. The guards outside his door stood perfectly still, their long spears tipped with sharp crystal blades. He had slept little. His mind kept returning to the strange events of the day before, the way the queen had stopped his execution, the way the crowd had reacted to his smile, and the words she had used. Unconquered. The sound of the chamber doors opening pulled him from his thoughts. A tall female Velaran in dark blue armor stepped in. Her crest of thin silver feathers marked her as someone of rank. "The queen requests your presence," she said, her voice firm but not unkind. Oric followed her through long corridors lined with silver patterns and tall windows that showed the city below. Servants bowed slightly as they passed, though many looked at him with curiosity or suspicion. The throne room was empty except for Queen Sarathis, who sat with her chin resting lightly on one hand. She dismissed the guard with emotion. The huge doors closed, leaving the two of them alone. "You have caused a great stir, human," she began. "The nobles speak of nothing else. Some believe you are a danger. Others think you are a sign." Oric raised an eyebrow. "A sign of what? The old story you told me?" Her silver eyes narrowed slightly. "The legend is older than my throne, older than our cities. It says that when the Velaran people face their greatest trial, the unconquered, one will stand among them. He will smile at death, and the darkness will hesitate. He crossed his arms. I didn't come here to fulfill anyone's prophecy. I came because I saw an interesting energy reading on my ship's sensors. The Queen studied him, her expression unreadable. Perhaps destiny hides in chance. Auric almost laughed at that, but the seriousness in her eyes stopped him. I must know if the sign is true, she continued, and so I will test you. Test me? He asked, frowning. Yes, she said, rising from the throne, not with weapons, though there may be time for that, but with challenges that will show your mind, your spirit, and your will. Her first test came immediately. She led him to a side hall where a large, circular table stood. On it lay dozens of thin silver tiles, each engraved with strange patterns. This is the puzzle of echoes, she explained. It has been solved only by the wisest of my people. Arrange the tiles so that the patterns flow as one. You have until the last shadow passes the sun mark. Auric looked at the table. The patterns reminded him of waves, but they did not connect in obvious ways. He sat and began moving tiles, ignoring the murmurs of several watching servants. He remembered something from his academy training. Alien designs often repeated certain sequences like music. He began matching tiles based on rhythm rather than just shapes. Slowly, the chaotic lines formed a single flowing image, like a river winding through mountains. The Queen stepped closer. You solved it faster than I expected. Sometimes the trick, Auric said, is not to look for the picture you expect, but the one that's already there. The second test came the next day. She brought him to a council meeting. The Eidze long oval table was surrounded by nobles, their robes shimmering with status colors. The Queen announced that Auric would speak on behalf of the human perspective in the current debate. A discussion on whether to trade with a neutral alien, race, or to close borders entirely. Auric listened carefully, noting the hidden tension between the nobles. Some clearly wanted isolation. Others feared losing resources. When his turn came, he spoke plainly. Where I come from, we learned the hard way that shutting ourselves away makes us weaker, not stronger. You fear that trading might let others influence you. But the truth is, isolation gives your enemies the advantage. It blinds you to what's happening beyond your walls. The room went quiet. Several nobles exchanged uneasy looks. The Queen's lips curved just slightly, not a smile, but close. By the third test, Auric began to see a pattern. The Queen wasn't just curious about him, she was preparing him for something. That third test was more dangerous. He was brought to the Hall of Mind, where a Velaran elder known as a Thought Weaver waited. The elder's eyes glowed faintly as he spoke. I will enter your mind, human, and see if you can resist my will. Auric sat across from him, feeling a pressure build in his thoughts, like a strong wind pushing at the edges of his mind. Images flashed. His ship drifting in space, the memory of his family, the fear of falling into endless darkness. He steadied his breathing. They want me to break, he told himself. But I've been lost in asteroid storms. I've faced vacuum leaks. This is just another storm. The pressure grew, but he imagined a wall in his mind, unshakable, and at its center, his smile. Not forced. Not mocking, but the same calm, steady smile that had stopped the Queen. The elder pulled back suddenly, blinking in surprise. He is strong, the Thought Weaver said to the Queen. When they were alone again, the Queen said, You have faced 3 tests, and in each you stood firm. There are those who wish you gone, Auric Dane. They fear what you may become. He met her gaze. And what do you think I may become? Her eyes were steady. Perhaps the one my people have been waiting for. Before he could reply, A messenger burst into the chamber and bowed deeply. "My queen, urgent news. The Rithak Dominion has sent an ultimatum. Surrender within 10 cycles, or they will destroy our border worlds." The queen's expression hardened. "So the storm begins." Auric's stomach tightened. He didn't know what game he had stepped into, but he was starting to realize that his survival, and perhaps hers, would depend on more than tests and smiles. The news of the Rithak Dominion's ultimatum spread through Velara like a cold wind. Markets went silent, workers whispered in the streets, and the nobles held private meetings in shadowed rooms. The Rithaks were not a race known for empty threats. When they promised destruction, they delivered it. Captain Auric Dane could feel the tension everywhere he walked. The guards outside his chamber no longer stood with casual stillness. Now their eyes scanned every corner, every movement. Even the sky seemed different, the shifting violet clouds feeling heavier somehow. That morning, Queen Sarathis summoned him again. The throne room was quieter than usual, the large audience gone. Only a handful of trusted advisors stood near. "The far walls. You know of the Rithaks?" she asked, without preamble. "I've heard the name," Auric replied. "Aggressive, expansionist. Their fleets hit fast and hard." The queen nodded slowly. "They have claimed our border worlds, are theirs by ancient right. If we refuse their demand, they will attack within 10 cycles. Our fleets are strong, but their numbers are greater." Auric studied her face. She was calm, but her silver eyes held a sharp focus, like a hunter studying prey. "And where do I fit into this?" he asked. "That is what I am deciding," she said. "Some of my council believe the prophecy means you will lead us to victory. Others think it is foolish to trust a human stranger." Auric gave a small smile. "I'm not a soldier in your army. I'm an explorer. My ship barely survived your patrol fleet. And you want me to face the Rithaks?" She stepped down from the throne, her armor flowing with her movements. "You have already faced my people and lived. You have passed every test I have given. I have seen strength in you that is not in our fleets or our weapons." He shook his head. "Strength doesn't stop starships?" "No," she agreed, "but it can change the course of battles." Over the next days, the queen continued her tests, though they no longer felt like puzzles or debates. Now they were preparations. One day, she brought him to the Star Command Hall, a vast room filled with floating displays of ships, planets, and orbital defenses. The commanders stood in a circle around a central platform, discussing strategies in their sharp, formal language. "This is our current defense plan," one commander explained, showing rows of ships along the border. Auric studied the layout. "You're lining up to meet them head-on?" "Yes," the commander replied proudly. "We will show our strength." "That's also exactly what they'll expect," Auric said. "And when they know what you're doing, they'll plan to break it." The queen tilted her head. "What would you suggest, human?" Auric stepped forward, pointing at the holographic map. "Pull back here. Make it look like you're retreating. Hide a smaller strike fleet in the asteroid belt here. When the Rithaks push forward, your hidden ships can cut into their supply lines." Several commanders frowned, muttering to each other. One finally said, "It is risky. If they detect the hidden fleet—" "They won't," Auric interrupted. "You're thinking like soldiers who have always fought the same way. You have to think like a hunter who knows the prey is stronger. You win by surprising it." Thus, Queen watched silently, then said, "We will consider it." That evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, she spoke quietly. "You think differently from us. That is why I believe you may be the one from the legend. But there is something you must know." She led him to a small pavilion, its roof shaped like silver wings. Inside stood a tall pedestal holding a crystal sphere. Within the sphere floated a faint, swirling light. "This," she said, "is the heart of memory. It contains the recorded histories of our people, older than the palace itself. Auric leaned, closer, watching the light shift and form images, battles, strange landscapes, faces of alien rulers long gone. In these records, she continued, are tales of humans. Long before your world knew the stars, our ancestors spoke of beings that looked like you. They helped us once, and then they vanished. Auric frowned. You're saying humans were here before? I am saying, she replied, that perhaps your people and mine are linked by more than chance. And if that is true, then your arrival now may not be an accident. He stepped back from the sphere, his mind turning. If humans had visited Velara in the past, why was there no record of it on Earth? Unless it was so long ago that the memory had become myth. Before he could ask more, a guard entered, bowing deeply. My queen, there is unrest in the outer city. Some citizens believe the human is a sign of hope. Others call him a curse. The queen's expression darkened. Fear spreads quickly in times of war. She looked at Auric. You are not only a guest here now. You are a symbol, and symbols can be dangerous. That night, Auric stood on the balcony of his chamber, watching the city lights below. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear shouts, though the words were too faint to understand. The Swine was right. His presence had become more than a curiosity. He thought about leaving, but the truth was, even if the queen let him go, the Rythacs were coming. If Velara fell, other worlds, maybe even human ones, could be next. The next morning, the queen visited him personally. The council has agreed to let you join the war council meetings. You will speak, you will listen, and you will advise. But understand this, if you fail, it will not only be your life at risk, it will be my people's. Auric met her gaze, feeling the weight of her words. I didn't ask for this, he said quietly. Neither did I, she replied. But here we are. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Auric nodded once. All right, I'll help. A small, rare smile touched her lips. Then the prophecy continues. The days moved quickly after Auric joined the War Council. Each morning began with updates on the Rythac fleet's movements. Each evening ended with tense debates about how to prepare. Every decision felt like it carried the weight of an entire world. Yet in between these meetings, Queen Serathis often took Auric to places far from the throne room and strategy tables. She said he needed to understand Velara itself, not just its soldiers, but its soul. One afternoon, she brought him to the Hall of Ancients, a quiet place deep beneath the palace. The air there was cool, carrying the faint scent of old stone. Tall columns carved with alien symbols lined the hall, and in the center stood a great circular platform. This is where our oldest relics are kept, the queen explained. Many of them were here long before the palace was built. Auric walked slowly around the platform. Strange objects lay on display, tools, ornaments, and weapons that were clearly from different ages. One piece caught his eye. A metal plate, no bigger than his hand, covered in symbols. At first he thought they were Velaran script, but when he looked closer, his heart skipped a beat. These markings, he said quietly, they're almost identical to ones found on ancient ruins. Back on Earth, the queen stepped beside him. You recognize them? Not exactly, he admitted. But I've seen similar designs in old human archaeology reports. We never knew where they came from. She gave him a thoughtful look. Then perhaps our histories are not as separate as we thought. They moved deeper into the hall, stopping at a tall stone pillar. On it was carved the image of a figure, humanoid in shape, wearing a simple cloak and standing between two alien armies. The figure's face was smooth and plain, but its mouth curved in a clear, calm smile. Auric stared at it for a long time. That's... He didn't finish the sentence. The unconquered, the Queen said softly. The one who came to us long ago, when we faced the great darkness. The one whose smile turned fear into courage. Auric turned away from the pillar. I'm not him. Perhaps not, she agreed. But perhaps you carry the same fire. Later that day, they visited the sky gardens high above the city. Vines and bright flowers grew in the open air, swaying gently in the breeze. From here, the horizon was wide and endless, the violet clouds glowing faintly in the setting sun. This is where I come to think, Sarathis said. When I was young, my mother brought me here and told me a ruler must always see beyond the palace walls. Auric looked out at the city below. You're showing me all this for a reason. You want me to care about this world. She met his gaze. I do. Because only when you care will you fight for it, as if it were your own. That night, the War Council received new intelligence. The Rythak Dominion had sent small scout ships ahead of their main fleet. These scouts were probing weak points in Velara's defenses. If they found one, the main attack would follow. In the meeting, one commander suggested strengthening the border near the western moons. Another wanted to focus all power on the capital's defense. They're testing you, Auric said firmly. If you move your forces too early, they'll know where you're weak. You need to mislead them. Several nobles frowned, but Sarathis leaned forward. Go on. Send false signals, Auric continued. Make it look like you're preparing for battle in one sector, but keep your main strength hidden in another. When they attack where they think you're weakest, you'll be ready. The Queen studied him for a long moment. Then she turned to her commanders. Prepare it. After the meeting, Auric was walking back to his chamber when a figure stepped from the shadows. It was Lord Veyron, one of the Queen's oldest advisors. His voice was low, almost a whisper. You should leave, human, Veyron said. Your presence here is dangerous. Many believe you will bring disaster, not salvation. Auric met his eyes. I didn't ask to be here, but I'm not walking away while a war is coming. Veyron's gaze hardened. If the Queen trusts you, she will follow you into fire. See that you do not lead her into ashes. The next morning, Sarathis brought Auric on a journey beyond the city. They traveled in a small skimmer craft, passing over rolling hills and glittering lakes. Their destination was a mountain peak, where an ancient temple stood. This is the Sanctum of Stars, the Queen said as they entered. It is here the old rulers sought guidance. Inside, the walls were painted with vast scenes of the galaxy, star systems, strange creatures, and great battles. One panel showed a human hand clasping a Velarans in alliance. Another showed fleets standing together against a dark wave that seemed to swallow the stars. Auric felt a strange chill. It's like a history of a war we never recorded on Earth. History, she said, and warning. They stood together in the center of the temple, sunlight falling through a high crystal window. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, the Queen said, We are two worlds, human and Velaran. But if the Rethaks are not stopped, there will be no worlds left to fight for. Auric nodded slowly. Then we stopped them. As they returned to the city, news arrived. The Rythak main fleet had been spotted at the edge of the system. They would arrive in less than 3 cycles. The time for history lessons was over. The time for battle had come. The sky above Velara darkened as the Rythak fleet appeared on the horizon. Thousands of ships, sleek and menacing, filled the blackness of space like a storm ready to break. The city's towers gleamed under the violet clouds, but the light was pale and weak against the growing shadow. Captain Auric Dane stood in the Star Command Hall, watching the holographic display that showed the incoming enemy ships. Around him, commanders barked orders, voices filled with tension and determination. The queen stood nearby, her silver eyes focused but calm. "This is the moment," she said quietly. "Our people look to us to protect them." Auric nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavier on his shoulders than ever before. He was no longer just a visitor or a prisoner. He was a key part of Velara's defense, maybe even its hope. The battle began with the Rithak ships moving quickly toward the border moons. The Valoran fleet responded immediately, lining up in a classic battle formation. But Auric's plan was different. He had insisted on a smaller fleet hiding in the asteroid belt, waiting for the right moment. As the Rithak advance fleet passed, the moons, Valoran's strike ships suddenly appeared, attacking the enemy supply lines. The surprise hit hard. Rithak ships scattered to defend their cargo, leaving their main fleet vulnerable. Auric's heart raced as the battle shifted. The Queen spoke softly. "Your plan works." But the war was far from over. The Rithaks quickly regrouped and sent a massive wave of fighters toward the Velaran capital. Auric joined the command center on the main bridge of a flagship, the Starfire. The ship hummed with energy as weapons charged and shields flared. "Captain Dane," the ship's commander said, "we need your guidance. The Rithak fighters are faster and more aggressive." Auric studied the holograms. "Use hit-and-run tactics. Don't engage head-on. Draw them away from the city, then strike with your heavier ships." The commanders hesitated but followed his orders. Small groups of Velaran fighters darted in and out of the enemy lines, pulling the Rithak forces further from the capital's defenses. Meanwhile, the Queen led the ground forces. Though she was a ruler, she had trained as a warrior. Her presence inspired the troops, and her strategy kept the city's borders secure. During a fierce space clash, the Rithak flagship appeared near the front lines. Its size and power dwarfed all others. Auric knew that destroying it could break the enemy's morale. He volunteered to lead a daring strike team on the Starfire. The ship launched from the command center, cutting through the blackness of space, toward the enemy. The battle was intense. Laser blasts flashed and explosions shook the ship. Auric remained calm, giving orders and adjusting tactics as the Rithak flagship fired heavy weapons. With precision, the strike team targeted the enemy's weapon systems and engines. After a long fight, the Rithak flagship weakened, and the Starfire delivered a final blow that disabled its engines. The enemy flagship was forced to retreat, and the rest of the Rithak fleet faltered. Back in the command hall, cheers broke out among the Velaran commanders. The Queen smiled. The first real smile Auric had seen from her. "You have done well, Captain Dane," she said. Auric shook his head. "We did it together." As the battle calmed, Auric noticed a message coming through. It was from a Rithak prisoner captured during the fight. The prisoner requested to speak with the Queen. The Queen agreed, and Auric watched as the prisoner was brought before the royal court. The Rithak spoke calmly. "Your victory is only temporary. Our empire will return with greater force. But I must admit your human advisor fought with cunning." The Queen looked at Auric, her respect clear. Days after the battle, the city held a ceremony to honor those who fought. The Queen stood before the crowd and then did something no one expected. She knelt before Auric. The crowd gasped. For a ruler to kneel was a sign of great respect, even humility. "Captain Auric Dane," she said loudly, "has saved Velara when all seemed lost. Today, I honor him not just as a guest, but as a friend and protector." Auric felt a warmth in his chest, but remained humble. He helped the Queen rise. "I do not ask for praise," he said. "I only ask that we face the future together, as allies." The Queen smiled again. Together. The battle was won, but Auric knew it was only the beginning. The Rithak dominion was strong, and peace would not come easily. He looked out at the stars, thinking about the smile that had stopped a kingdom, the trust that had formed between two worlds, and the battles yet to come. The sun rose over the city of Velara, casting long shadows from the towering spires. The air was filled with a mixture of hope and tension. Though the great battle with the Rhythak Dominion had been won, the war was far from over. Everyone knew this victory was only the first step toward a longer fight for peace. Captain Auric Dane stood near the palace courtyard, watching the crowd gather. Today was a special day. The Queen had called a great assembly of nobles, commanders, and citizens. Word spread quickly. Something important was about to happen. Auric's mind wandered back to the moment when his smile had saved his life, and the Queen's strange reaction. Back then, he was just a prisoner, facing death. Now he was a respected advisor, standing beside a ruler who had learned to trust a human. The doors of the grand hall opened, and Queen Sarathis appeared, radiant in ceremonial robes of silver and black. Her silver eyes scanned the crowd, finally resting on Auric. For a brief moment she smiled, the same calm, warm smile that had stopped an execution. The hall fell silent as the Queen approached the central platform. Then, something unexpected happened. Slowly, deliberately, she lowered herself to one knee before Auric. A gasp swept through the crowd. It was a gesture unheard of in Velaran history. To kneel was to show deep respect, even submission. The nobles whispered nervously, some shocked, others curious. Queen Sarathis spoke in a strong voice that carried across the hall. "Captain, Auric Dane, you came to Velara as a prisoner, sentenced to death. But through courage, wisdom, and the strength of your spirit, you saved our world from destruction." She looked directly at Auric. "Today, I kneel before you, not as a queen, before a subject, but as a leader who recognizes the true heart of a protector." Auric's chest tightened. He felt humbled, yet proud. This moment was bigger than either of them. It was a symbol that two very different worlds could come together. Slowly, Auric reached out his hand and helped the Queen rise. "I do not want your worship," he said softly. "I want friendship, partnership, and peace between our peoples." The Queen nodded. "Then let this day mark the beginning of a new alliance, one built on trust and respect." The assembly erupted into applause, voices rising in hope and joy. After the ceremony, Auric and Sarathis stood together on the palace balcony, looking out over the city. The violet clouds had begun to clear, revealing stars that sparkled like distant fires. "You changed more than the battle, Captain," Sarathis said quietly. "You changed how we see ourselves. You showed us that strength comes not only from weapons or numbers, but from hope and courage." Auric smiled. Sometimes all it takes is a smile. They spoke late into the evening about plans to strengthen their alliance. Humans would share their technology and knowledge. Valerans would offer their unique skills and resources. Together, they would prepare for whatever challenges lay ahead. But for the first time, hope felt real. Two worlds, once strangers, were now friends, united against the darkness. As the night deepened, Auric thought about Earth, about his crew, and about the long journey that had brought him here. He realized that sometimes fate worked in strange ways. A simple smile had saved him, and it had saved a kingdom, and that was only the beginning.